Hi there, well, welcome to this introduction to the situation analysis module, one of the modules we're developing as part of our work to update Conservation by Design 2.0. And the goal of this introductory video or presentation is twofold. So the first is to save you some time. When you start the workshop series with your facilitator, by watching this introduction, you'll be able to move much more quickly through that introduction, and that'll save you about 20 minutes to half an hour of time. We'll cut down on the time you need to spend with your facilitator during those workshops. The second is to give you a sense of how you're going to be spending your time together, give you a little bit of a sense of what that journey looks like. So before I dig in and provide the introduction to the situation analysis module, I briefly wanted to touch on the work to update Conservation by Design 2.0 in general, and really just to point you towards where you can find more information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen here and just briefly navigate you to the Connect page where you can access those resources. So bear with me just a moment. So you can see here that we have Connect open, and on the top we have our typical tabs. And we're going to go into Departments and then choose Conservation. And when the page loads here, you'll see we have Conservation by Design 2.0, and we can click on that. And on this page, then you'll find a wealth of resources relating to the work to update Conservation by Design 2.0. This includes details of the modules, introductory videos. So if you're interested in gathering more information about the project and the work underway, this is where you can access those resources. So what I'm going to do now then is to switch gears and talk you through the overview, provide an overview of the situation analysis module. Now we offer this module in two formats. One is on Mural. If you've not encountered Mural, it's one of our virtual whiteboard options. It's the other being Miro that is often used. There's no expectation that you have familiarity with Mural in order to be able to engage with this tool. Your facilitator will be trained in using Mural. We can offer two options to teams. One is we can give a very simple primer of the basic operations you'll need to use in Mural. These are very basic, so we can give you that brief training. That'll take about 5 minutes. Or your facilitator can simply add content on behalf of the team. So whichever option you prefer, we can accommodate both those. And I will say that even if you are an expert Mural user, we will still have the facilitator add most of the content to the Mural board, because we found that having people speak up, voice their ideas, helps to foster a sense of group cohesion and communication among them. We also offer this module in the sort of a non-tech format, and that can be using sticky notes. It can be using poster paper. It can be using a chalkboard, a real whiteboard, and the tool readily is adaptable to that format as well. So today I'm going to be using Mural as a basis to walk you through the introduction, but again emphasizing that if your team would prefer the option of undertaking this workshop series in using pen and paper, so to speak, is absolutely available to you. So let me go ahead now and share my screen, and we can take a look at the Mural board and dig in on the introduction. So I deliberately have this Mural board zoomed sort of right out right now, and I appreciate that means you can't see any of the details. And picture sort of the analogy here might be that you've got a physics class you're in. Your professor has written detailed equations across the whole board, and you're standing 200 feet back from it. Yeah, so that's sort of what we're looking at here, is zoomed right out from a board that has a lot of content on it. But I wanted to start here just to illustrate sort of what the tool looks like. And what we have here is essentially a series of steps that you will be going through during this workshop series. We'll begin on the left side of the board, and we'll be moving across to the right-hand side of the board. And so your facilitator is going to be sort of zooming you in and out to various parts of the board throughout your journey together today. So our introduction is off to the left, and I'm going to go ahead now and zoom into that introduction. And I hope that my doing so doesn't make you a little bit dizzy. So our introduction will begin with literally some introductions. Yeah, we want to make sure we get to know each other. And so even if you're watching this video, we will still begin with a quick round robin, a simple icebreaker, and an opportunity to share our names and the role we play at the Conservancy. And then the first place we're going to dig in, and again, we will still do this even if you've watched the video, is to go through and make sure that we have group norms that everybody thinks are, the right group norms, and that we all agree to sort of honor throughout our time together. Those norms are really important so we can create a safe space where everyone can lean in together. The next part of the introduction then is pretty critical, and it's really sort of why undertake a situation analysis. And so if you've never undertaken a situation analysis before, the goal of the situation analysis is to create a simple model, a diagram that tries to capture a lot of complexity. Because what we're trying to describe here is the context within which you are trying to solve a particular challenge that relates to the mission of the Nature Conservancy. And we call that challenge our primary interest. It's the issue that brings you to the table. It could be the current state of something you care about today in a particular place, or it could be a state that you're looking to avoid happening in the future. But that is, we're trying to understand sort of what is that state and what are the forces that are causing it to be, and what are some of the consequences of that challenge in the world, either today or in the world sort of as yet to come. And we build out that understanding of that context so we can begin to think about where action could be taken in order to make a meaningful difference, towards addressing that particular challenge. We call those often leverage points, or places where we might undertake interventions. Now, in some cases, you as a team will already be undertaking actions and, to address this, your primary interest, your challenge, and you may have been doing so for many years. So for some teams, developing a situation analysis is really about asking, are we undertaking the right actions already in order to drive the kinds of changes we want to see? Other teams are going to be coming together for the first time, developing a new strategy, or really sort of fundamentally reimagining work going forward. And so it may be more about what are the actions we might take in the future that we think are going to make the most difference. So the situation analysis, this diagram, this model you're going to develop, provides the foundation then for thinking about what actions could be taken. And then stepping on from that, then asking the question, what actions should the Nature Conservancy be playing a role in? That might be in a leadership role, it might be in a supporting role, but where is sort of the Nature Conservancy uniquely positioned, add value to address this particular challenge? So when we think about building out that context, as participants, you're going to have lots of different expertise in the room. And typically you're going to have some folks that have detailed knowledge of a particular piece of the puzzle, but perhaps not complete knowledge of all the pieces of the puzzle. And this is where sort of the analogy of the blind man and the elephant comes in. You have some folks who know the ears, you have some folks who know the tail, etc. Nobody has an understanding or a picture of the entire creature. And so the goal of the situation analysis, working together as a team, is to get an understanding of a much more complete understanding of that entire context within which you're working. So I mentioned that there are other modules being developed as part of the work to update conservation by design. And as I showed at the beginning, there's a lot of information on Connect around those resources, really looking at the work as a whole. But today I just want to sort of quickly hone in on the situation analysis here as one of those modules. You can see that sort of in the center of the board. And I wanted to identify sort of the two steps around that, the step that many teams have undertaken before the situation analysis, which is defining objectives, and the step that teams often take afterwards, which is strategy identification, evaluation, and selection. And I hone in on those steps because, as you begin a situation analysis, if you as a team have no idea what it is you're looking to solve, you have no idea what the challenge is, and in fact, if you expect that there's a wide range of different perspectives in the group, it may be difficult for you to develop a situation analysis. Yeah. So defining objectives is often an important precursor to being able to step into the situation analysis step. It's not a required one. And so if you're here today and you think, yeah, we actually have a pretty good understanding of the challenge we're looking to resolve, what success looks like, then you should be able to step through this workshop and end up with a useful product for your team. And then after teams complete the situation analysis and you've got that foundational context, that model, then you really do need some kind of structured process to sort of say, what are all the actions we could take in order to make a meaningful difference towards tackling the challenge we're focused on? And what's the subset, the short list of actions we're going to actually try taking given available resources? And the tool that we offer for that conversation is strategy selection. That's where you have a formal process to step you through building from the situation analysis and thinking about those actions in the future. So in terms of sort of the general approach that we'll be taking, and I've already spoken to this a little bit up to this point, is we're gonna break down developing a situation analysis into a series of relatively small steps. And in the past, many teams developing a situation analysis would just sit down and would just have a go at it, and try and create that complex diagram. And when with that approach, there's a lot of pain points that are commonly encountered. An important one being that teams don't know when to stop, and so teams might spend months developing a situation analysis and creating a model that is far more complex than actually is valuable for how they're going to be using it in the future. So by breaking it down into a series of steps, we make it much easier for a team to step through this process. We make it much more efficient. And we hope we make it a little bit more fun as well by going through those steps. So that's the approach that we're going to be taking. And in a moment, I'll talk you through quickly what those steps are. Each step builds upon the last, as you might expect. And the steps are really designed to encourage first draft thinking. So what we're trying to encourage teams to do is to move through this process relatively quickly, really harness the power of the knowledge in the room at the time, which is typically considerable at the Conservancy. We often have literally centuries of experience collectively in the room that we can use and we can harness. And so we do that through moving quickly and not having really deep and detailed debate about specific aspects of that analysis. And the reason for that is that that's often a pain point. That's often where teams get stuck. And so we try and move through and encourage teams, the participants and the team as a whole, really focus on that first draft thinking. So in the terms of the steps that we will be going through in this workshop series through this tool, we are going to begin by agreeing on that primary interest, making sure that we know what the challenge is, and we have agreement on what the challenge is we're looking to resolve, and what we're going to be building this model, this situation analysis diagram around. Once we have that down, we then step into an initial sort of brainstorm around what are some of the immediate sort of consequences of the state, or today or potential future state of that primary interest, and what are some of the key drivers, some of the immediate sort of reasons why that state is in place. And we go through that quick exercise because it starts to lay the foundation for how then we build out that diagram from there. The middle point here, building this sketch of this situation analysis, is where your facilitator and you are going to spend a lot of your time together. This probably accounts for about 2/3 of the total time, and that's where you do build out that first version of that model. But then get to take a step where we begin to think about different perspectives, recognizing that we rarely have all of the interested parties we'd like to engage around this strategy in the room as we're building these situation analysis. And so this step, looking at different perspectives, is really just to demonstrate why it is so important to have a diversity of perspectives in the room. It doesn't serve as a substitute for having those perspectives, but it does begin to demonstrate to the team the importance of engaging with those constituencies as you go forward. And then the last step then will be to begin to think about where are some of the places within that model where if you could take an action, you can see it leading to a really positive change in your primary interest, or a really positive change you'd like to see. So we begin to think about where might actions be taken, not necessarily by the Nature Conservancy, but where might actions be taken that could make a meaningful difference. And what you'll find when you go through that step is that there are some places that you can see a lot of energy from the team, you can see a lot of opportunity, and other places that perhaps seem less important in terms of making a meaningful difference. So the deliverables from this workshop series, sort of what you'll have coming out of it, we hope is a good enough shared understanding of that context, both the natural and the human, what we often call a socio-ecological system that surrounds the thing you want to fix, your primary interest, the state of that primary interest. And we hope that will begin to have a diversity of perspectives, included, recognizing that there's likely to be more work for you to do in that space. Again, based on our experience working with teams. We want you to have some of those key levers that if you could find a way to pull them, could lead to a really positive change. Begin to see where there's really sort of energy for action within your diagram. We want you to have a more complete understanding of the world than when you started. So if you came in knowing the tail of the elephant and you come out and you're like, yep, we pretty much described the tail of the elephant and nothing more, then this won't have been a success. We want you to actually come out with a more complete understanding of the world surrounding the issue that you're looking to focus on as individuals than you did at the beginning of the workshop. This is a great opportunity to continue to build cohesion and alignment within your team. So we hope that you have a shared, an increased sense of purpose and strengthened relationships having gone through this work. We hope it leads to increased trust. And then we also, again, really want to be, emphasizing the importance of a diversity of experience, cultures, and values, and how that can help you both build, in this step, build a fuller understanding of the context in which you're working, and ultimately help help us as an organization be more effective, make more of a difference towards achieving our mission. If you're undertaking this tool as part of our efforts to use testing to improve the tool, we will be asking you for feedback. So that's something we're looking for out of this workshop. If that's part of the purpose of this, and you will know if we're using this as a test, we hope that you'll provide that feedback so we can improve this tool going forward. So that's another deliverable from the perspective of our team. At the end of the workshop series, your facilitator is going to help you really take a look at what progress have you made in developing that situation analysis, and based on that progress, what feel like the right steps for you to take going forward. But I wanted to briefly touch on those as as part of the introduction today. In general, what we find as teams step out of a situation analysis is sort of one of the following. So one is that you have a body of work, you have existing projects underway, you undertake a situation analysis, and it really confirms that you're doing the right things. You feel confident, and you're like, we can step away, we can continue in that space of implementation, learning, and adaptation. So staying in that space of adaptive management, but we're not feeling like our situation analysis said, hey, we really need to rethink what we're doing, with the work that's already underway. Another step that teams might take is that you've built out a sketch of your situation analysis. You thought about some of those paths of leverage, but you're like, these areas seem really important, and we need to spend a little bit more time understanding them. So having a time-bound, focused effort to continue to build out discrete sections of your situation analysis might be the right step for your team. What we don't want is for your team to leave this workshop and spend months continuing to try and improve this model. That generally isn't the right investment of resources for it. And you could also decide that having undertaken the situation analysis, you want to step onto another conservation by design module. That might be strategy selection, it might be a theory of change. The guidance and the resources available on Connect, along with our staff, can help support you in that journey. So again, in terms of next steps, we'll reassess these at the end of the workshop series, once you can actually see what progress. One thing we will do as part of the introduction, and this is even if you have watched this video, is we will be assigning some roles, or we will be asking you to help us assign some roles. And these will be roles that different people will be playing throughout the workshops to help support, us having a great experience together. So I'll leave the roles for now, because we will be coming back to those for all teams. A little bit more here on the introduction, and then we'll be ready to wrap up here in just a moment. So, I do think it's important for teams to have a little bit of a reality check about, what is likely to be sort of the end result of your time going through this workshop series. And one thing to emphasize is that, you will not end up with a complete, detailed understanding of the context within which you're working. We hope you have enough content. You have enough of an understanding that it's a useful resource for you moving forward. But even if you could develop, a perfect diagram of every different factor and the interrelationships among them, today, the world's changing. And so that model over time will become less and less useful, yeah? So this really is focused, as I said, on sort of good enough. That's really what we're aiming for here, because that's what we've learned from teams is sort of what is actually useful for you in terms of that investment of resources. And the best way for you to continue to build and understand the context within which you're working is to try some things and to learn from those experiments. Essentially to undertake adaptive management. I can't emphasize that enough. I also want to just reflect that how far you do get during this workshop will depend upon your starting place. Yeah. So if you're a new team, you're exploring a brand new area of work, you're fundamentally reimagining your work, you can expect to come out with a if we look at our horse heads here, with something more akin to the top sketch. Yeah. This is probably a simple model where you've got the key elements described, but you've got details still to figure in. If you have a team where you've been working together, you have more of that sort of that foundational work to build from, you would expect that sketch to be more complete, something akin to the middle image here of the horse. And if you're a team that's you're a mature team, you've perhaps undertaken situation analyses in the past, this body of work well, you can expect to have a much more complete sketch. Now you might ask, well, why don't we try and get every team to this final version here, so you have a really complete sketch? And there's two reasons for that. One is simply time. it would take a lot longer for a foundational team to reach this point than it would for a team that's already somewhat close to that. But secondly, and importantly, is that it really does have to be iterative. For you to be able to build that much more complete sketch, you need to have actually tested some things. You need to have actually gone out into the world and undertaken some projects and tested those assumptions. You really can't do that as a theoretical exercise, from that, a starting point of really beginning a new body of work right up to that complete understanding. You can't do that in a simple workshop. You have to actually go through adaptive management. A couple of last things here before we wrap up our introduction. The first is just to briefly touch on scope. As an organization, we have a mission that is currently embodied in our 2030 goals. And, our organization, our senior leadership has been very clear that the expectation for all of us is that we focus our attention, our resources on work that meaningfully contributes to those goals. Your assumption of your facilitator will be that you're thinking about that your work is aligned with the goals. It is not their job to be second guessing you or to be, throughout the workshop to be trying to sort of, point you in certain directions. That really is an expectation of the team, both during this workshop and throughout the work you do on behalf of the Nature Conservancy. And then the last thing I wanted to briefly reference is the garden. This is a place where, where we can capture really important things that emerge during the workshop series, but that are out of scope for the conversations we're going to be having together. And so this is a place where we can sort of plant those seeds, and then your team leads can figure out a way with your team to continue those important conversations afterwards. So thank you so much for bearing with me as we've gone through this this introduction today. I hope it's been helpful for you. I hope it gives you a sense of how we'll be spending our time together. And if I'm your facilitator, I'm looking forward to digging in with you on this workshop. But on behalf of whomever is your facilitator, we're really looking forward to supporting your team in developing that situation analysis. Thank you so much.